I get somewhat excited when I talk about teams like the New York Giants and quarterbacks like Daniel Jones because I feel like this team and I feel like this quarterback very rarely, especially within their own fan base, have gotten a very good rap. And I don't think it's been very fair when you talk about the blame that gets thrown around for Daniel Jones and whether or not I think, that blame is warranted. I just don't think it's very true when you look at some of the plays that get made by the rest of this team. However, yesterday's game against the Seattle Seahawks, I think, was the first game all year where this offense altogether, and even without Malik Neighbors, which is a little bit, I guess, surprising is the right way to put it, but it's also without Devin Singletary. It's offensively, you have Tyrone Tracy, who's a rookie. You have Darius Slayton, who, let's be honest, was put on the shelf, really, by the New York Giants coming into this season. They really were not expecting anything out of Darius Slayton. At least I wouldn't think they were. And Daniel Jones went 23 of 34, over 250 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Tyrone Tracy, who I mentioned earlier, goes off for 129 yards. Darius Slayton goes 8 catches for 122 yards, which coming into this game, 122 yards is exactly what Darius Slayton had the entire season. Now, I don't know necessarily if this is more about a positive for the New York Giants, although I do think it's very positive to see this from New York. I think it's a definite negative sign about the Seattle Seahawks because this was a Seattle Seahawks team that, yes, gave up a lot of points to Detroit, but we're kind of seeing the better the opponent that Seattle sees, their defense definitely gets much worse. In the first 3 weeks when they were facing quarterbacks like Bo Nix, Skylar Thompson, Jacoby Brissett, they were game wreckers. They didn't allow over 150 yards passing. They scored enough points offensively where it doesn't really, there's never going to be a question when you're playing teams like that. But these last 2 weeks where they've played Jared Goff and Daniel Jones, who, albeit, both of those quarterbacks, I guess in Jared Goff's case, he's definitely a top 10 quarterback, possibly even a top 5 quarterback when he's all the way right. But Daniel Jones, he is much better than those first 3 quarterbacks they played, but he's nowhere near even Jared Goff's stature. And this is still the result that happened to the Seattle Seahawks today. Again, I don't know if this is just, everything came together right for the Giants, which I do think everything did come together pretty well for the Giants in today's game. But this is a pretty bad sign for Seattle as well. Especially when you compare this performance to the performance last year when the Seattle Seahawks went to the New York Giants and absolutely throttled them. 24-3, Daniel Jones had a pick six. They weren't doing anything offensively, really, in last year's game. Statistically, they looked fine, but they also gave up 11 sacks. They were pretty bad on third down. It's a complete 180 from how this game went last year to how it happened today. Now, obviously, this game looks a lot different if at the end there isn't a blocked field goal that would have tied it from Jason Myers and the Seattle Seahawks. And there's possibly even leverage that wasn't called by the referees at the end of this game that totally would have changed the outcome, not only of that play, but of the game. If that field goal is made and we either go to overtime or the New York Giants stall out, they punt it back to see, there's hundreds of different endings that could have happened in this game. But this is the ending we got. And it seemed like a pretty, I don't know, it seemed like a satisfying ending. It didn't seem like the type of ending where you look at it and you're like, well, Seattle screwed this game away over again. It just was, Seattle lost this game. New York won it, and they won it from all 3 sides of the ball. All in all, there were way too many plays where Seattle had negative yardage or they just weren't doing anything offensively. When you talk about having 7 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, 13 plays where Seattle got negative yardage. Compare that to New York, there were only 5 plays. And even when you say that, that's not including fumbles, that's not including anything like that. And while I did bring up that this game looks a lot different if a blocked field goal doesn't happen, this game also looks a lot different if Seattle doesn't get a 100-yard fumble return that literally, like, there couldn't be a better case of a 14-point swing than that play at the goal line where Eric Gray fumbles probably 4 inches away from the goal line, and Rayshon Jenkins picks it up and takes it 100 yards for a touchdown. That's 7 off the board for the Giants, 7 on the board for Seattle. And even with that, Seattle still, after that play happened, they didn't do anything offensively until the fourth quarter. And that goal line play was pretty early in the game, pretty early in the first quarter. I do somewhat think that this is going to be a somewhat split in the road for both of these teams. For New York and Seattle, they basically have their bye week at the same time. Seattle has it in 5 weeks in week 10. New York has it in 6 weeks at week 11. But New York's schedule and Seattle's schedule, this is a week where, Seattle either has to step up and be better what they have been, be better than what they have been the last couple weeks, because it does not get any easier. Their next 4 opponents until they get to their bye week: the Niners, at the Falcons, Buffalo Bills, LA Rams. 4 very good quarterbacks, 4 very good offenses, 4 teams that are going to be coming after the Seattle Seahawks. I just don't know, I guess, if Seattle is equipped to go for it based on what we've seen the last 2 weeks. Now for New York, this is a split a lot different, where you say, if this New York team plays every single week going forward, even at least until week 11 when it's the bye week, they not only could get back to 500, they could be in a prime spot for a wild card position. 2 games at home with Cincy and Philadelphia, 2 games on the road at Pittsburgh, at Carolina, with a game against Washington in between there. And they're on prime time a lot until their bye week. They have a Sunday night football game against Cincinnati next week, Monday night football at Pittsburgh 2 weeks after that, and then technically not prime time, but you're playing the London game against the Carolina Panthers. And that was a game I said was on the road. Technically it is on the road, but it's not in Carolina. So like I said, this team could get to 500. This team could be in prime wild card position. And then when they come out of their bye week, it's still a tough road ahead. Same with the Seahawks coming out of their bye week. 3 of 4 on the road, 3 of the 4 against divisional opponents. And I just don't know, I guess, with the Seahawks. I feel like I know more, and I feel more excited about the New York Giants because, again, they did this without Singletary. They did this without Malik Nabers. If they can get 2 guys in Tyrone Tracy, who, again, is a rookie, and they can get somebody like Darius Slayton, who, again, was kind of put on the shelf by the Giants, to each have over 100 yards in their respective categories, that's so exciting for New York, and it's a little bit terrifying if you're a Seattle Seahawks fan.